Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are starting this evening's program. Shall we please be on our feet as the speaker and the chair take the high table? I humbly ask that we put our mobile phones on silent. Thank you.
President of the Academy, past presidents, vice presidents, past vice presidents, fellows of the Academy, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, students, good evening. On behalf of fellows of the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, I welcome you all to this evening's function. As you know, this is the 57th in the series of the J.B. DANQUAH Memorial Lectures. In fact, the J.B. DANQUAH Memorial Lectures were instituted in 1968 in memory of a foundation member of the Academy, Dr. Joseph Boakye DANQUAH, who died in prison in February 1965, fighting for freedom in all its manifestations. The event consists of a series of 3 lectures delivered on varying topics or themes ranging from law, philosophy, medicine, literature, religion, nation building, and what have you. I'd like to inform you also that this evening's event is being screened live on the Academy's various platforms, Zoom, YouTube, Facebook, and so on. My duty here is simply to introduce the chairperson for this evening. The chairperson for this evening's event is Emerita Professor ISABELLA AKYINBAH QUAKYI. Professor QUAKYI is also the Vice President for the Science Sections of the Academy and also a council member. She is a professor of immunology and parasitology at the University of Ghana. Her groundbreaking research on malaria. She's also a fellow of the African Academy of Sciences and the first Emerita professor in the sciences from the University of Ghana. She established the immunology unit at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research and was appointed the dean of the School of Public Health, again being the first woman dean in the College of Science and the College of Health Sciences at the time. She has earned numerous awards, including the UNESCO Chair for Women in Science and Technology in the West Africa region, and in 2014 as a laureate of the African Union Kwame Nkrumah Award for Women in Sciences, and again in 2019 as a laureate for the Clara Southmud Ludlow Award by the American Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. She was recognized by Women's World Day 2021 as one of 7 women who have changed the world for the better. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I introduce to you your chairperson for this evening's event. Thank you.
President of the Academy, past presidents of the Academy, vice presidents of the Academy, fellows of the Academy, distinguished guests, cherished students, media, all protocols observed. Good evening. My simple task is to introduce our lecturer, but we've had 2 days of stimulating, thought-provoking discourse on how we define ourselves as Africans, or even where is Africa and who are Africans. And this is the first day, the confused dream. And in the speaker's introduction, he says, our advocacy for independence, and at independence, the Africans have not still arrived at an informed self-knowledge. On day 2, we spent 6 to 7 decades with coup d'etats and a comedy of democracy and the nightmare that we've lived through, and this 3rd day. So let me now introduce our amazing lecturer for the 3rd time, for those who weren't here for the first 2 days. Our lecturer for the 3rd series is no other than Nana Kobina Nketsia V, Omanhen of Essikado, British Sekondi traditional area. Nana Kobina Nketsia V is the paramount chief Omanhen of the Essikado, British Sekondi traditional area in the western region of Ghana, and serves as the president of the Traditional Council. A product of Mfansiman School, he obtained his first degree in modern history from the University of Ghana, and later earned a Doctor of Philosophy in African History from the University of Calabar in Nigeria. His areas of interest include Pan-Africanism, African culture and religion, governance, law, and philosophy. He is the author of African Culture in Governance and Development, the Ghana Paradigm 20, a member of the Public Emoluments Committee, and honorary member of the Railways Workers Union. He has also been involved in the Global Family Reunion International Council, GAFRIC, a Pan-African reparatory justice committed body of chiefs, elders, and other indigenous African community leaders, the National Festival of Arts and Culture, NAFAC, the Public Utilities and Regulatory Commission, PURC, the Volta River Authority, and the African Regional Conference on Education for Cultural Heritage Development by UNESCO. He has, in recent times, been outspoken on the ramifications of illegal mining on the people and heritage of Ghana, and has spared no opportunity to join advocacy against Galamsey. Tonight, he concludes the 3-day lecture on the theme, In Search of a Transformative Paradigm, Authenticity and the African Future. The sub-theme for today is he's going to create an alternative dream for us. From the confused dream, the nightmare, today he'll have some answers for us. Thank you. You're
the chair for this occasion, and I'm glad that the chair is a woman, because in my culture, Odumankuma is a woman. Odumankuma is not a he, but a she. And Odumankuma no body. So, Madam, I hope that some creativity comes out of me. But standing on your existing protocols, it's quite interesting. I've been musing to myself all kinds of things that could happen to this continent. And my mind went to the Ndebele writer that I quoted yesterday, Mokwana Makonwana. And he made a very beautiful statement. For those of us very interested in reading, he says, our books can know and remember for us, but cannot think for us. So I'm praying that today, that's a form of prelude to we thinking together. As I thank first the Academy for giving me this opportunity. I knew there would be such a large crowd, especially the students, because you are the objectives of tomorrow. And then thank the institution of the DANQUAH Memorial Committee, because I have a very personal gratitude for this particular, for today in particular. And this gratitude stems from the fact that the man in whose memory these talks have been initiated wrote a book, The Akan Doctrine of God. It's a work that falls into the category of early African literature, first challenging Western supremacists and contemptuous studies of Africa. But at the same time, again, just like most of them, they were written to explain Africa to a non-African world. A lot of the work that came, Sechi's work, Saba, Kesleyford, and all of them. But you see, even though my ancestors left me a profound instruction that Obinchre Abufaba Yami, something that we forget all the time. My early encounter with the thoughts expressed in this work contributed to my appreciation of one of my special heroes in our history. And when I say our history, I'm talking about both Africa and the diaspora. And that is an insight provided by Dottie Bookman. Bookman's insight said, if I want to win and survive as an African, I should cast aside my white God and embrace my African spirit. Very simple and direct. No Arab or European can teach or reveal to me my African spirit. My freedom lies in that Africanity. Through DANQUAH's discussion on the breathtaking magnificence of the non-imperial, listen to me carefully, non-imperial attributes of the African God, Bookman's perceptions took on a very special meaning that the white man's God asked him to commit crimes, but the God within us wants to do good. Our God, who is so good, who is so just, we all should throw away the image of the white man's God, who is so pitiless. Any oppressed or chained African should tune his ears to what this God will tell you, because you need to listen to that voice of liberty that speaks within all our hearts. It is in the listening to my inner self, the voice of liberty in my heart, that I came to rediscover my authenticity as an African and the spirituality of being African. Thank you, Dr. J.B. DANQUAH. Much earlier than Frantz Fanon, Kobina Sechi is on record to have stated in 1917 that now the fault with those in Africa and elsewhere who are at present striving might and stain to emulate Europe is that they are copying the habits of a diseased society, diseased state of society. The evil is European civilization, which consistently, with its disruptive character, extends by denationalizing people. Europe knows only empire, which means the exaltation of one nation in the debasement of all other nations that are unable to resist aggression. It takes an African to write that. It is in my African spirit, my African originality, my African authenticity that I find my creativity, a creativity that consistently benefits humanity. When the chairperson was being introduced, for example, and they were going through a litany of the things he has done, nothing did they say about the things he has done that goes against humanity. Everything has benefited humanity, and may she continue in that framework, even as she gets close to my age, as Nana. It is in this Africanity that I came to appreciate the superb statement by W. Du Bois when he said that the spell of Africa is upon me. If you think in the framework of the excreta poured on Africa by Europe or the West, you'll always go into self-hate. You are living on the wrong continent. You will come to perceive that Africa's challenges have been driven by forces that lie without Africa. An African young lady whose work I came across, Evelyn Kisi, in her self-discovery wrote, "Reading African thought and African knowledge producers has been an enlightenment. As I read in ways that I have never read before and dissected the writings of great critical Pan-African leaders with a passion and in-depth connection to the issues uncovered," she says, "African thoughts, discussion, and reading is a getaway avenue, a place where I can seek solitude away from the whiteness of knowledge production that created an intellectual bankruptcy for those of us not seeking knowledge legitimacy from the hegemony." In fact, if you ask most of the lecturers, they'll say, "Oh, any article you write, you should send it to Europe, or they will add an European's name to make it complete." Why? This is our challenge, that everything you are doing, somebody sitting out there within their framework has to put a stamp on you before they know that you too can think. You are not a monkey. In fact, the words that got me to the depth of my consciousness is when she wrote, "Walking the shadows of my ancestors was invigorating." Now ask yourself, how many of us have turned away from even meditating on the word ancestors? We are scared. We are indirectly taught to shun them. The lady then enters a series of questions. Why did it take so long to find this safe space? Why wasn't I taught about my ancestors from childhood? Why was this void left within me? Will it take this long for younger generations of African people to find these safe spaces in their academic journeys? Will they be subjected to the current debilitating intellectual bankruptcies, leaving them with only knowing, embodying, and using emancipatory tools created by the white hegemony? Paraphrasing this lady, as you know, this lady said that it is vital for the African thought shields, such as this special institution, to interrogate how humanness is constructed from early childhood and carried on in oppressive post-secondary educational system that continue to deny safe spaces in which to learn or engage in revolutionary theories that could dismantle and break the yoke of white hegemony. A friend of mine passed away. He was a chief, but brilliant professor. And one day we were sitting down, he was in philosophy, and we said that there are enough books in the world to stock all the libraries in Ghana to do with the way we should think. But we just don't want to touch them. Whether we are scared of them, they seem radical, they don't form into the normal thing, is another matter. And at the end of this lecture, I thought I'd provide, maybe in writing, a list of books that should be made compulsory reading in almost every African institution. We need to know ourselves. Further, it is equally imperative for the academy to engage within these non-space spaces, safe spaces, to prepare the next generation to stand in opposition to spaces that erase our bodies, knowledges, and lineage. Another friend of mine, Nketsia the First, has stressed this. One's character is the complexity of mental and spiritual traits which mark a people and is a detectable expression as evidence of their ability to transmit their own hereditary information. If we are not passing down to the next generation of African children the essence of what is an African, we have no character. The fundamental evidence of our having a character is that we pass in very precise ways what it means to be normal. Africans in general shared one overriding philosophical system. It was, in a very real sense, not something for the betterment of the individual, but something for the community of which the individual was an integral part of. For the traditional African to be human was to belong to the whole community. Sometimes you wonder, these beautiful carvings we have, things that have been built, proverbs, we hardly have names associated with them. Because in our production, there is social ownership, not individual ownership. It is something that most people don't reflect on it. But these are some of the things that point out that who am I? I am my people, and my people is me. If I don't think that way, I could go on in that framework, but we'll get to the philosophy and the science and so on of what that means. Obviously, such thoughts strengthen the case for those of us emotionally and intellectually committed to Africa of the fact that it is most imprudent and irresponsible for any African generation to lose their indigenous ancestral investments and core values, as well as the cultural knowledge banks of their predecessors because of their miseducation. It is not only a disservice to the future, but a betrayal of the ancestors by the present. It is the loss of being. That is why, in African communities, the worry of the elders is derived from one question: what are we leaving behind for those coming after us? Fellows, members, presidents, vice president, etc., of this very august institution, what are you leaving behind for those coming after you? Are you leaving behind your Africanity, or you are leaving behind your Europeanness? There is a gospel that I like. I like reading that particular one. That is the Gospel of Thomas. Rarely ever heard it in Christian churches. But in that gospel, Jesus is credited to have said, if you give birth to what is within you, the voices you redeem will redeem you. If you fail to find and give birth to them, they become part of what is destroying you. Going within, finding yourself. In a way, Kessleyford amplifies this when he wrote, we want thinkers of great thoughts, and no worse burden could be imposed by any civilization on the African nationality than the burden of the double life, the arch enemy of truth. How can you have double personality? One part of you is white, the other part of you is black. What kind of human being are you? Are you a black man? Are you an African? Or are you an European? To get rid of the double consciousness, which W.B. Du Bois had also alluded to. And Kwame Ture, the man that when I was young, he was known as Stokely Carmichael, kept talking about consciousness. Hayford wrote, we simply want our education to enable us to develop and improve our native ideas, customs, manners, and institutions. Go to the political science department. Ask them why science of politics is being taught in the political science department. Whose science? Go to the law school. Ask them, what law are they teaching? The rights of the individual. What about the rights of the community? What about the responsibility to the community? Communal responsibility. These are just some of them. As soon as you go into the sociology department and you pick up Weber, you are lost. Because you don't even understand the community to the individual, not vice versa. These are the challenges that we have. Science, all of you saw on WhatsApp recently, an old man sitting in fire, defies every kind of science the West has had. And then Africans started sending it all over the place that Prince Charles has cancer, and I decided to treat it with herbs. It just tells you that we've left something behind, that we need to go back and rediscover it. The science of frequencies. There's a young man in Zimbabwe, everybody is scared he'll be killed. I think Zimbabwe or Malawi, who has his car running on frequencies. It goes against what the West teaches, though they are worried. There's a young boy in Sekondi who has his car running on water. And of course, we are busy, saying all the waters. So I wonder which water he used, polluted ones or non-polluted ones. These things bothered people like Wesley Hayford, Africans like Wesley Hayford. That in the Gold Coast, for example, Hayford founded the Gold Coast National Research Association. As a matter of fact, my intellectual hero, Kobina, was the one in charge of the Gold Coast branch. And he wrote in the Gold Coast Leader that the aim of the association was the elimination of the white man's standpoint from the black man's outlook. As far back as 1900, 1913, I think that's when it was formed. They wanted to eliminate they were interested in what today we call African-centeredness or Afrocentricity and all that. As far back as then, the thinkers were worried about such things. What happened to us? Our tertiary institutions, they are based on what? African-centeredness? We have a challenge. Your secondary schools, they are based on what? So these are the things that would help us to change. And they will come. To seek solutions, find a purpose and mission, and inspire hope for Africa. It is a necessity to inquire, interrogate, and understand the structures, contents, and context of how Africans have allowed themselves to be dominated, oppressed, and suppressed. Africa's own history must offer the reasons underlying the mindset of subjugation and the acceptance of the whip of covert and overt neo-imperialism and the nightmarish experience that I spoke about yesterday. Do we teach in the secondary schools, for example, why we should unite, the reasons for unity, so that at that early age, we push it into our heads? Do we teach into in the secondary school the factors that have stopped us from uniting, the outside forces? We just don't talk about unity. You work towards it. When you believe in something, you work towards it. I'm going to an African heaven. That's my ancestors. And I'm working towards it. That is the challenge. If your teachers are not teaching you and think that, the president goes to, what do you call it today, AU meeting, goes and speaks grammar and comes back. The other one goes to speak French and comes back. The other ones speak what? Portuguese. And if they don't teach you these things and the factors holding them back, then we have a problem. That even perhaps they are not African enough. They are enjoying their spaces, that they are like tyrants holding them. So they don't want to let go. An African lets go his individual, his ego, in the interests of the overall, the benefit of everybody. There's more that I could say to that. So these are the problems. So right from there, the mind knows. It knows the enemies, the obstacles that are challenging our thoughts and preventing us from even having one household. If African systems of education do not teach how and why the West has come to subjugate us from an indigenous perspective and also challenge the students to find solutions to this domination in every field of human endeavor, then the education system is not worth its foundations. In spite of the deep-seated psychopathic condescension by the owners of the governance systems of the West, it was remarkable that a colonial functionary called Sir Hugh Clifford, I didn't name him Sir. I've told you that those cultures, if you steal for them, they will bless you with a sword, expressed an observation that, and this is Sir Hugh Clifford, please. Professor Fiajo, this is between you and I. The most notable achievement that can be placed to his credit, to the Africans' credit, in his invention, and listen carefully, without the assistance of extraneous influence of the democratic system of government and state socialism, which are the basic principles upon which his ethnic policy is founded. And it is interesting to note that while the European political theorists are apparently working their way to a state of things closely resemble that which the African people long ago, and that they long ago evolved for themselves. I mean, this whole thing ridicules some of the things we are busy doing. If you look at the empty colonial propaganda of the time of barbarism, they were the barbarians, but they call you the barbarians. Primitive ones, they were primitive. They are working to learn what we have, the higher cultures we had at the time. Higher cultures, you know, with regard to our knowledge systems. And then one can then easily deride the exalted and racist culture of Europe. Why? Because Clifford had been conditioned there. But that is not enough. Imperialism is a sociopathic and psychopathic and human denigration phenomenon. Nobody is coming to conquer you and raise you up. Anybody who comes and conquers you will push you down. Additionally, there's an awareness of the pathetic heritage of savagery, greed, and matrix of social discrimination within which Clifford was cultured. When you look at it that way, then you realize that it is astonishing that Clifford, coming from that particular culture, would have a modicum of intellectual aptitude to perceive or discern something positive about the African socio-political philosophy. Implicitly, Clifford perceived the democratic system. Aren't you learning democracy today? Aren't there NGOs telling you democracy? And state socialism as the powerhouse. Moreover, Clifford was gradually admitted to the existence of this higher culture and state of being, and therefore a form of wisdom unknown to European imaginations and conceptions. One should also take cognizance of the mental damages being inflicted on the African as revealed through this colonial agent's amazement that Africans are displaying an inclination to discard them as an immediate and inevitable accompaniment of their real solid advance towards a higher standard of civilization. Here is somebody, no matter how he looks at Africa, it gets true that he has come across a civilization they've never known. But here are the members of that civilization, busy trying to copy what the European, oh Christ, these Africans. Putting aside Clifford's pretentiousness, his reflections expose the challenges any researcher would face after a century of deliberate miseducation about the African and his or her institutions. African corpus of thought and knowledge has been distorted and inverted. Her forms of cultural expression have been maligned as well as inferiorized. The covert and overt ideological or philosophical aggression on institutions and their accompanying sciences undermined the deep thought as well as the fundaments in which such institutions were situated. The systemized mental violence generated from the West promoted illusions as reality for Africans. We've been chasing what we shouldn't be chasing. and that is very important. If sometimes I look at the Galamsey havoc in Ghana, for example, and appreciating the ecological wealth bequeathed to the present by the Africans who have gone on, every authentic African comprehends with sadness the instruction of the First Nations of the US that, and they say, treat the earth well. It was not given to you by your parents. It was loaned to you by your children, who do not inherit the earth from the ancestors. We borrow it for our children. In whose interest are we raping the ecology? Look around. In whose interest? The trees we are felling down. In whose interest? Destroying our own pharmacopoeia. In whose interest? There are trees that we search for and can't find because we need the bark, we need the roots, we need the leaves, but we've chopped them because instead of calling them by their names, we now call them what? Timber. So they go away as timber. Sad. African authenticity, for example, displays knowledge of the relevance of climate change, the maintenance of the planet through constant repairs. It is imperative to go into a transformative adaptation through the decolonization perspective and a Pan-African revolution. A scientist that I like, Madam, I have nothing to quote from you, so another time. Interestingly, this is one I look at a human being 10 times. You never get me to go into a lecture and quote Churchill. That means there's something wrong with my head. But I'll quote Albert Einstein because he was human. And he says, we can solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. The African cannot go into the same incubator that has created problems for him or her. So this leads to questions. As imitators, what are we imitating? Go to Kenya. When study the so-called democracy, you come away asking yourself, what is this? I don't want to talk about Ghana. Go to Nigeria. Go and look at the parties and ask yourself, what's all this? We are lucky that this particular space of Africa, when you consider Sierra Leone, Liberia, and probably what happened to Nigeria some time ago, we haven't fought. And I pray to God, the God of Africa, that we don't fight. Because that will affect our thinking. We are imitating those who came to rape us. We are challenged. So what are we imitating? Why are we imitating? Are we apes? Eyandua. I always make some laughter about the two political parties in Ghana. One says they are Social Democrats, and the other one says they are what? Liberal Democrats. Very nice words. And I said they should go to Teshi and go and explain Liberal Democrats to them in Ghana. 10 years, they wouldn't know how to start. They should go to Tamale and explain Social Democrats to them in Dagomba. The same thing. But I leave the rest to you to assess what it is. But these are the challenges. The indigenous path and the path of imitation are two divergent paths. The former, that's the indigenous, is a path of power, creativity, and self-reliance, whilst the latter is a path of powerlessness, dependency, and helplessness. Power imitators rely on the sources of the original power to endure. Thus, one finds in Africa those who claim to have power rely on the very tools of oppression put in place by those who rearranged Africa in their interest. The nature of that power is an illusion. The reality of power lies in one's culture, and to the extent that what one is cultured is indigenous or indigenized. You know, sometimes you hear people say, oh, you're speaking truth to power. You can't speak truth to power. Truth is power. To the African, truth is God. God is power. So you are speaking truth to whom? So when they say we are speaking truth to power, hey, in our society, no quarrel. It's power. That's why when the chief speaks, he has only one thing because of his name, Otumfu Kasapreku, Osiadeyo Nana. He speaks only one thing. When he opens his mouth, he speaks truth. And when he speaks, his people will say, Nana, you have a perfumed mouth. One. Europe's power to colonize lay in the greed inherent in the ownership of its culture. And I've said that more than enough. Even the European appreciation of their God of peace has manifested in human discrimination, torture, inquisitions, enslavement, and colonialism. It has led to sociopathic behavior becoming an acceptable display of power. Which European government can you trust, and why? All of you sitting here. Which European government, Western European government to be more precise, can you trust, and why? In Ghana, for example, the recesses of European culture are as gloomy and shadowy as the dungeons of the forts and castles Western Europe erected across the pristine coasts. Please do not forget that that culture generated 2 world wars before it permitted a greater share in its ownership by its own people, based on a heritage of social class divisions and the manipulation of their citizenry. It's their gift. It's their forte, how to manipulate. Imitation never develops originality. Any person or group of people whose existence is shaped or determined through the reproduction of an original never rise above the original. The source of the imitation always wields power that lies in creativity. Power lies in the creativity or the creator. Africa wears the Made in Europe label. I get a kick out of Africans quoting Montesquieu's 3 Arms of Government, for example. When they quote it, they forget to add that Montesquieu just said that Africans are apes. And he said it openly. He wrote it down. The one you are imitating, 3 arms of government. You ape. To contrive philosophies for the acceptance of certain forms of existence in and for their own, and for the owners, men such as Thomas Hobbes, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and John Locke placed in their minds into an imagined state of nature. Do you know how many Africans are in Leguan learning the state of nature? Wasting their time and my time. I've never been in a state of nature. But there's all kinds of imagining, and you go and take somebody's imagination as what? Your textbook. And at the end of the term, semester, they will ask you questions. What did Locke say? What is Locke's thinking? Get us some home. You know, I've come down because of you so that you'll understand. Because somewhere along the line, you need to rebel. There must be an intellectual rebellion in order for us to have a proper revolution. We learn such theories for our African societies in whose interest. Lady Chair, originality lies in indigenous Africa. However, it is exactly that indigenousness that has been pushed out in the European rearranged Africa. A new crop of Africans have emerged who do not know Africa. All they know is the Africa arranged by Europe, the ape Europe. European arranged Africa is rooted in Europe, and each generation of those who lack self-knowledge deepen the European roots. To these new Africans, to be human and to live in a human community is to be an European ape. They attempt to culture themselves as Europeans on African soil. They have plagiarized the mindset, tools, and institutions Europe used to subjugate Africa. They lack originality because imitation is incapable of being original. As Africans, they are vacant and purposeless. Colonialism has destroyed their will to think critically, creatively, and comport themselves independently of European mores and norms. One can share the pains of Reverend SRB Atwahuma when he wrote that, as a people, we have ceased to be a thinking nation. Sad. He wrote this about 1900. Our forebears, with all their limitation and disadvantages, had occasion to originate ideas and to continue in their own order. They sowed incorruptible seeds, thought seeds, and we are reaping a rich harvest today, though for the most part, we are scarcely conscious of the debt we owe them. Western education or civilization, undiluted, unsifted, has more or less inebriated our minds and made them passive and Catholic. These European-made Africans, i.e. the children of the white man, are the disease congenital to contemporary Africa. Explore the world from where I sit, and you'll have an understanding that the mindsets and the worldview which created enslavement, which created colonialism, which created the Congo Holocaust, which created the Herero desolation, which created Auschwitz, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs, and apartheid have not gone anywhere. They are here. Look at the world carefully. They are here. One poor baby, they are here. Such mindsets and worldview have not changed. Whether you clothe them in Arabic turbans or Christian frocks, they are still here. What about us? We are headed for extinction. That's a basket case of fifth world economies. I didn't say fourth world, fifth, or AIDS infested populations. And the AIDS too, we are still contending about how we imported it into Africa or exported it to other sides of the world. Or we are conflict-driven entities as Bantustans, unless we burrow into ourselves to find the inner indigenous strength and means of survival in a competitively unforgiving, predatory world. Go and study Sierra Leone. Why did they fight? What was it all about? The Liberian fight. What is happening in the DRC, Congo DRC today? Who is gaining? Who supplies the arms and the bullets? Who manufactures the arms for you to kill your brother? We almost made that mistake with ECOWAS. For whom and in whose interest? For a democracy defined from the West. Abai. This is our challenge. You either, to go without to find one's strengths and delusion, you either live or die with your worldview. Your existential paradigm becomes the paradigm of life or death. To survive is to liberate yourself from the paradigm used by a hostile culture to cripple your authenticity. As I said earlier, there's a need for a revolution. In the ballot or the bullet, which I urge all of you to listen to. I used to listen to it when I was driving from Cape Coast, from Sekondi to Cape Coast. I listened to it about twice over. Malcolm X says, you don't have a revolution in which you love your enemy. And you don't have a revolution in which you are begging the system of exploitation to integrate you into it. Very simple and direct, very clear, very logical. If you sit here, you don't know your enemy, then excuse me and forgive me for saying this, you're a fool. A dog is a dog because it knows how to hunt, it knows how to bury bones, it knows where to find them. A dog is not a dog because it wears clothes and can walk on two legs. It's still not a dog. The real dog is a dog that can care for itself, not a dog that is taken to the hairdresser and so on and so forth. That dog that knows where it buries its bones, that dog is the educated dog. Which kind of dog are you? I'll leave that to you. Because the elders here would make sure, and I'm very confident of that. I've had chats with Professor Kofinti and so on. And the dog here, he's a big dog. And he'll make sure that you all know that you are dogs, hunting dogs. You know where your bones are. That is the work of the academy. So revolutions overturn systems. Revolution destroys systems. This is the reason I, for once, am enjoying what is happening in the Sahel. I'm sitting here, but I can see systems being destroyed. The neo-colonial system. And who are not happy? Those whose minds do not understand. And every time, who kills the African? The African puppet being controlled by outside forces. So what Traore is saying, what the guys in Nigeria are doing, what the guys in Mali are doing, it's a very, very, very new thing in this Africa. And let's hope that it catches on, that we all overturn systems and make our systems very African. Who killed Sankara? Go and find out. And why? A young man who was changing the systems in his country. He was killed. Who killed Lumumba? And who are the people? Do the people come from Europe to come and kill them? Think African. Only those who have already experienced a revolution within themselves can reach out effectively to help others. So if you are not born again as an African, believe you me, you can't help. This is Malcolm. Within you, that is where the change must come. That is where the realization must come. When I came here on the first day and I made jokes, I was very serious about the jokes that I'm trying to and fighting to kill the European in me. And I'm still fighting. In everything that passes my way, I wonder whose test I use to look at it, whose eyes, whose worldview. If I don't understand, I keep quiet. Once again, it is worthy of referencing Lumumba when he said, I have never doubted for a single instant, and I mean not PLO Lumumba, this is the older one. I have never doubted for a single instant that the sacred cause to which my comrades and I have dedicated our entire lives would triumph in the end. But what we wanted for our country, its right to an honorable life, to perfect dignity, to independence with no restrictions, was never wanted by the Belgian colonialism and its Western allies, who found direct and indirect, intentional and unintentional support among certain high officials of the United Nations, that body in which we placed all our trusts when we called on it for help. You only have to trust the brother you know. You just don't trust your brother because you came from the same womb, because his mind could have been taken over. We are in a very serious, every African who doesn't know that we are in a war shouldn't be here. We are in an intellectual war. And it's our minds that we'll use to win. If our minds are taken over completely, they might as well start calling ourselves, I like the fancy word, abroba, which means broyinaba. But what abro is broyinaba, you know? So that would be nice, very interesting. Lumumba knew that the African is on his own and the fact that they have corrupted some of our countrymen, and I'm quoting him. They have bought others. They have done their part to distort the truth and defile our independence. What else can I say? So if you listen quietly, you know that I've been preaching something very familiar to all of you as what is going to create the alternative dream. The word authenticity, if you look into the meaning, a lot of articles are coming about authenticity. I don't want to go into the philosophy of authenticity. It's not worth it. But it is know your indigenousness, yourself as being yourself. Like I said the other day, a Professor Nti quoted me. I didn't even know that I said that. You're somebody who carries the head of your ancestors. Then you know who you are. So all that I'm saying is a very interesting word, which we don't think too much about. We only say it, and it's Sankofa. Sankofa. Now, in a way, Sankofa can mean return to the source, going back to the beginning, coming to understand the source. And this is understanding the old paradigm, the ancient paradigm that has been there, returning and understanding it, conceptualization, building a political culture out of that paradigm. And that is why, personally, as I said earlier, I'm very happy for DANQUAH's Akan doctrine of God, because everybody uses religion based on their national need and their cultural understanding of themselves. We need an internal revolution. And I'm quoting Clark, and it's going to start with our minds. We have to step back in order to move forward. It appears that Clark, when he was writing this, was reading Atahuma, when he also said, around 1900, that we need to have an intelligent retrogression. When people call me a chief, for example, I laugh. I look at them and I move on, because they don't know what I am. The white man called me a chief, so all of you now call me chiefs. And if you go to Kumasi, there's a house of chiefs, house of which chief, colonial chiefs. They're a body of people created in the image of what the colonial people wanted them to be. So we sit there, we wear big clothes, like my friends, some of my friends sitting here, you know, and so on and so forth. And I laugh. The word Nana can never be defined in English. And that is why these days some people have been fighting over titles in English. I leave it there, but I just said that to provoke thought. So, you must have a theology of an African God of liberation. I have a friend sitting here. Ah, there he is. He's called Okujiman. Okujidom. Which one? Okujidom. Then I said, no, you are saying it in the past. Say it in the present and you know the real meaning of your name. Okujidom. Which is different from Okujidom and now Okujidom. That's the meaning of his tool. The title given to him, given to that tool. You fight for the masses. I won't tell you which one of them has that title, so that you don't trouble him. He has a lot of money, so. Any Africanist religion that does not wage a struggle for the return of what belongs to Africa betrays Africa. It is a stooge religion. Africa must seek the God of her ancestors, the God that took her through enslavement and colonialism. To have Sankofa is to enter an image construction that will bring a quality of spirituality, thought, and practice rooted in the cultural image and human interest of African people. We are not a compartmentalized people. We think whole. Touch one part and affects the other. That's the way we are. That's the thought given to us. That's the philosophy of understanding our worldview. If he is sick, I'm sick. So it's the philosophy of sharing. And even in charity, we say, money is being given to you. Its only essence is, how have you used the gift given to you by Providence to help your community? If not, you're a foolish African. These are thoughts, the values that must return. And we need to go do an introspection in order to find them. To be rooted in the African interest, to be rooted in the human interest of African people is to be informed and attentive to the just claims on life and society Africans share with other peoples. Respect for truth, justice, freedom, and dignity of the human person. Haven't you seen that if you go throughout Africa, most of the time, we seem to be trusted. A human being is a human being. The word is the honor. Once you give it, especially when you go to the villages. If you haven't lived in a village before, go there. And you see what is meant by community. And enjoy it. Sometimes when I go through the small enclave of Teshi, I feel so happy. See the people, they don't say, but they are happy. Something that no amount of money can buy. You see their teeth gleaming every day. If you come to my little community, every evening, brass band, brass band, brass band. It alleviates the poverty. But at the same time too, I sit back and wonder, are they not happier than me living alone and looking at them and I can't go and join them to dance? But that's the problem for chiefs, eh? There must be a change, a return to Africa for Africans. Africa is not for Europe. Africa is not for the Chinese. Africa is not for the Arabs. Africa is for Africans. Just take it. And you see that things fall into place so easily. Sometimes you ask, what is wrong with us? That when you are trading, somebody has even created a border. There will be people in Upper East. They spread across Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, and a place called Ghana. And they have 3 markets that you have to cross. They have markets that you have to cross 3 borders in order to attend them on their market days. What's wrong with you? So in whose interest are those lines? The lobby? You are challenged. Learn from the mistakes we are making. And I'm sure the Academy is going to teach you some of these mistakes and at the same time to how to get rid or correct them. The continent must look within and search for lessons and the useful models to lay the foundation of a transformative paradigm towards a viable, stronger, and unified Africa. There must be a reimagining of Africa from Africa. Anytime I see a problem, an African intellectual, head of state, goes to Europe to go and discuss Africa's problems. Why? We are discussing our own problems, our own challenge. Why? Oh, there's this topic of poverty. Poverty in Africa, discuss it here. Why are you poor? You are going to the person who benefits from your poverty to discuss poverty with that person. I mean, Professor N.T., I know you agree with me on that one. I've seen you nodding your head. But that is it, I always watch. And so sometimes you realize that the time is not ready, so you want to stay in your little village in Sekondi and look at those who call themselves statesmen, professors, dashing across from here to here to go and discuss Africa in the oppressive world. Maybe. Young people, I'm glad you are here, and I hope my English words won't be wasted. African spaces must develop their own authenticity. It is within that authenticity that enslaved Africans prayed to return to Africa. It was the wish of the Africans who were extracted to other worlds that when they die, they return to Africa. I sat with a bongo man in my house, and as we talked, the bongo man from Jamaica did not want to leave. He says, ever since he was born, his dream was to come to Africa, and that now that he's on this continent, he won't go because Africa is paradise. Here is somebody from Jamaica and teaching me that where I'm living is paradise. He says, you know, my language is not good. He went into the, okay, look outside, no? You just put something down and it grows. He looked out. I mean, it taught me so much that I'm living in paradise. So I'm going to church to go to which paradise? And whose paradise? If I want a paradise, I should create it here. For myself, and most probably, those who will come after me. So this is the challenge. The significance of such understanding, ladies and gentlemen, which will reflect in the self-identity, self-definition of Africans, lies in the revitalization and redemption of the African cultural framework that will create the necessary ethos of governance and development. It is absurd to think, well, I don't want to go into there. Now, to get at the white man's creation, one of the most important Africans who actually used a gun to get rid of the Germans from his community says, and listen, Sam Nujoma, he says, Namibia doesn't belong to us alone. Namibia belongs to the African continent. It belongs to Zambia, it belongs to Angola, it belongs to Algeria. Namibia does not belong to us alone. Ghana does not belong to you alone. Ghana is only Ghana because it belongs to the African continent. And that is the beauty of being African. And in that thinking alone, you are getting rid of some of the pillars that are the cobwebs that have been put into our heads. And that's why I said, even in our teaching, right from whatever, is to teach us that we are Africans. We are Africans. Anything that stops us from being an African should be eliminated. It's as simple as that. Who are the forces? What forces? The French Africa was never free. It is now learning to be free. Some of them. English Africa, the Lusophones. I went to Portugal while I was in Lisbon, and I heard one young boy from Lisbon telling me that, you know, Portugal and Angola, they are brothers. I almost fainted. Because I know the history, I know the heritage. I know what they did to them. And now he's telling me that they are brothers. Since when? I went to Cuba, some place they call Santiago de Cuba, and I was forced to speak. And I was thanking the Cubans. I wonder how many of you know that Cuba is the only country or place outside Africa whose sons and daughters have come to Africa to fight for African liberation. They don't teach you this. And when I was thanking them, one woman broke out into song and stopped me from singing, from talking. When I finished, her song was translated to me, and she said she was thanking me for being the first African to go and say thank you for what they did, what they came to do on this continent. So you must have a life of gratitude. And what did they do? She said she lost two of her brothers. They were killed in Angola and buried in Africa. So she carries that memory with her. You, the young ones, are busy leaving Africa. You are buying cemeteries at Kensal Green and all that kind of thing, even before you get there. The Mediterranean lake is waiting to absorb some of you. if you find problems here in Africa, please fight for them here. Don't go and become boy in somebody's land. If the politicians are troubling you, trouble them. If the policemen are not doing what they should do, trouble them. The policemen are for you, not those in governance. Democracy is you. Democracy is not Republicans and Democrats or conservatives and Labour and you should follow. No, it is you and your participation in governance. And that is what chieftaincy all over Africa is about. The direct participation in governance. It is not a matter of parties. Fight for it. Think about it. It's strong. But in Kakakra, a revolution would come. Dr. DANQUAH wrote a letter to C.W. Techimanson, and he said, which is very interesting, we must find a way to make our country live as a force, and the force must be self-generated and generative, indigenous so as to speak. That's what Africa is about. There are some young boys that I've seen all over the continent. They post things on the social media in South Africa, in Namibia. They call themselves AC, African Continental Unity Party. And I've read them. And I said, if the youth at that stage can start organizing with such thoughts, they've been visiting markets, they'll go to shops in Namibia, ask questions, they go to places in South Africa. I said, they are young boys who understand organization, because it's the key to everything. So fortunately, I see that there is hope in some of you, but it comes from self-knowledge. So let us remember, one of the greatest minds we've had in Africa wrote a song which ends this lecture. Unfortunately, my voice is not very good. But always, always, when you walk on any part of this continent, not just in Ghana, but on this black continent, remember that. Thank you.
Another rousing Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You must admit that this has been an enthralling 3 days of invigorating intellectual discourse on what we perceive in Africa and who we are as Africans. And the future must be shaped for Africa to survive, grow spiritually, economically, for our human survival. How can I possibly summarize a poor scientist? We need, I would just quail at the thought of trying to become a political scientist or historian, but I can give you a few take-home messages that I gleaned. And he talked about the transformative paradigm, the alternative dream. And he's tried to give us an idea of where he wants us to go. He says, the African has traded its authenticity for African puppetry. That's one thing I gleaned. That we are puppets of our colonized. And we are happy to contribute in our slow disintegration. We are helping our colonizers to destroy us mentally. And he's charging the academy. He says the academy, this is part of what I gleaned. The academy is lucky to have a pool of, so-called intellectuals who have learned to research and seek for the truth. So he's really charging the academy that it's time for you to research what is going on, which he calls, the confused dream. The confused dream is that, do we even understand our independence? We fought for independence. Did we even understand what our independence was? And in trying to understand our independence, we are so happy to just follow our colonizers. The colonizers are parasites, he says. And they're not there to just love you. They want what you have. So they've got to encourage you to believe that you're nothing so that they can, change your mindset so that they can take what you have. So he's asking that you should stop this free fall, give hope to the youth. He's challenging the academy to bring thought processes. Let the academy help government. Let academy help their agencies, the youth, to recognize their own self. Let them learn about who they are, because if you don't understand who you are, how can you understand where you're going? So the challenge that I've learned, I was brought up in the history where I knew the Roman history, Napoleon, the great conquest. I knew everything about Churchill, Britain, but I hardly know anything about my own country. And I've learned so much about Ghana, the native, the wisdom that we had. And we were literally, and the trusting of the African, that we trust the European, and he comes, and we trust him so much that we leave our weapons. He says that we're blood brothers, and we come without our weapons, and he looks at us and then shoots us all dead, and then takes over what we have. This is what we have to start understanding, that we were some people. We are authentic Africans. We have to find who we are. What are we living? And then the other point we got is that educate your children to know who they are and what they stand for. And then ask yourself, what are you leaving behind for those that are coming after you? So us here, the academy says, it's time for you to change your paradigm thinking of just giving a series of lectures, but lectures that will turn minds, lectures that will, find out where we have come from and use where we have come from to develop the next generation of thought processes. That we shouldn't think just Ghana. I mean, the one point that I got was that we're saying we are Akans, we're Ebers. That Akan in Ghana is the Akan that filters over to Ivory Coast. And that was a whole learning process for me. The Akan is just not in Accra, Sefibioso area. The Akan is in Cote d'Ivoire. The Akan is, all around us. You take the Evers, filtering right up to the north. So just, our authenticity has been abrogated completely. So I, for once, don't really know who I am, actually. But this lecture, has told me that we should be thinking as Africans, because the African will not normally kill itself. But we have been made to start killing ourselves because we don't understand who we are. So he's really put a load on the academy that is high time you taught the next generation who they are, they were Africans before the European came. The European came only to, destroy and take over what you have. And we should recognize that. That is not stopped. And it's become a mind war. So we should also use the mind war to fight the change that we need and give the youth, a hope for the future. I cannot possibly summarize what you are. And I want to thank you so much for 3 days of stimulating and enlightenment. Thank you very much. Another round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a scientist, immunologist, she has really done well. So, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank our chairperson for an excellent summary. Some acknowledgements and observations. Nana came with, I'm not sure, the first day I wasn't here, so I'm not sure whether his part of his retinue or entourage, whether they were introduced. But I have the names now. We'll recognize Nana Ahamsa Safuhini. Safuhini, where is Safuhini? Yes, congratulations. Safuhini as a warrior, you know, he stood by Nana throughout. We also have Okujiman Edua the Fifth. We have Nana Esi Ninsin. We also have Nana Fokuo Bobie. We have Reverend Johnson Asiao. Talking about reverends, I have spotted my good friend, Reverend Dr. W.S.K. Bewanyo. Let's see. Okay. We also acknowledge some schools which are here. Accra City Campus of the University of Ghana. We also have Accra College of Education and Accra Academy, their numbers. Presec and Odogono Secondary, SHS. Odogono, where are they? Odogono? Up there at the back. Okay. My attention has been drawn to the fact that is it Doctor? I think Dr. Mokwa Adujemfi is here. R.S. Blaze's daughter. Yes. Okay. We also want to thank National Petroleum Authority, for their support for this year's public events, which include the DANQUAH Memorial lectures. They've given the academy, they're giving the academy support for their public events. So we want to acknowledge them. Any staff of NPA here? Not this evening. Okay. We want to announce that we have the daughter of JB DANQUAH, Iris, which is DANQUAH here. Yes. Yes. You will recall that must be your elder sister. Elder sister, Hildegard DANQUAH. She was attending the lectures regularly, year after year. She celebrated her 80th birthday just last October. I passed on shortly afterwards. And the funeral will come on April this year, 12th and 13th. Would it be in Accra? It will be in Accra here. We'll get further details on that. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, soon we have come to an end of the series of lectures for this year. I think we have had a lot of food for thought. And me being an agriculturist, I don't think I can summarize. The immunologist has done very well. But he's my friend Vandal, who were in the city together with Cliff. You also, Vandal? Oh, I see, V-mate. All right. Sharp, yes. All right. Thank you very much for coming. We bring the curtain down. We hope that you will continue to participate in our events for the rest of the year. We have lots of them drawn up. So whenever you hear the clarion call, please don't be missing. Thank you and have a pleasant evening.
Oh, yeah,